They say you should never marry a man you don't love. But what if the man you're about to marry never loved you either, and you're just a pawn in a game you don't understand? My name is Lily Harper, and I was supposed to be a bride tonight. Instead, I became a runaway. One whispered conversation behind a church door changed everything. One word, object, set my life on fire. This is the story of how the quietest girl in the room learned to scream. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The rain had started 3 hours before the wedding, and everyone said it was good luck. Lily Harper didn't believe in luck anymore. She stood in the bride's room of St. Catherine's Chapel, staring at herself in the mirror, a stranger in white lace and seed pearls. The dress was beautiful, expensive, chosen by Victor's mother, not by her. It fit perfectly, which somehow made it worse, like a costume designed for someone else's life. Her reflection looked terrified. "Stop it," she told herself. "Just breathe." But breathing felt impossible. The corset was too tight, the room too small, the future pressing down on her chest like a stone. In 2 hours, she would walk down that aisle. In 2 hours, she would become Mrs. Victor Hale. In 2 hours, her life would be over. No, not over. Different, safe, secure. That's what her aunt had said. "You'll be taken care of, Lily. That's all that matters." Taken care of, like a problem, like a burden someone needed to manage. Lily touched the necklace at her throat, the only piece of jewelry that was actually hers. A simple silver locket her mother had given her years ago, before the accident, before everything fell apart, before the debt collectors started calling and her aunt started making desperate phone calls to old family friends, before Victor Hale appeared with his perfect smile and his convenient proposal. "You look beautiful." Lily jumped. She hadn't heard the door open. Her cousin Emma stood in the doorway, already dressed in her bridesmaid gown, a soft pink that made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Emma had always been the pretty one, the confident one, the one who knew how to talk to people without stuttering or blushing or wishing the floor would swallow her whole. "I look like I'm going to throw up," Lily whispered. Emma laughed, but it was gentle, kind. She crossed the room and adjusted Lily's veil with practiced hands. "That's just nerves. Every bride feels this way." "Did you, when you married Josh?" "I was drunk on champagne and love, so honestly, I don't remember much." Emma grinned, then her expression softened. "But yeah, I was scared too. Marriage is scary. It's supposed to be." Lily wanted to say, "But you love Josh. You chose him. This isn't the same." Instead, she just nodded. Emma squeezed her shoulders. "Victor's a good guy, Lily. I know this all happened fast, but he's stable, responsible. He'll treat you well." "Treat me well." "Not love me, not cherish me, just treat me well. Like a pet." "I should go check on the flowers," Emma said. "You okay for a minute?" Lily nodded again, not trusting her voice. When the door closed, the silence felt like drowning. She sank onto the small velvet bench in the corner, careful not to wrinkle the dress. Her hands were shaking. They'd been shaking all day, all week, really, ever since Victor had slipped that ring on her finger in her aunt's living room, while everyone clapped and pretended this was romantic instead of transactional. 6 months. That's how long they'd known each other. 6 months of polite dinners and careful conversations. 6 months of Victor talking about his work, something in finance, details she never quite understood, while she nodded and smiled and tried to be the kind of woman he seemed to want. Quiet, agreeable, grateful. She was good at being quiet. She'd been practicing her whole life. The thunder rolled overhead, rattling the stained glass windows. Lily closed her eyes and tried to imagine her parents here. Her mom would have been crying happy tears, probably. Her dad would have been nervous, fumbling with his tie, making terrible jokes to hide how emotional he was. But they were gone. 7 years gone. A car accident on a rainy night, not unlike this one. And Lily had been alone ever since. Well, not alone. She had had her aunt. Aunt Margaret, who'd taken her in without question, raised her alongside Emma, gave her a home when she had nowhere else to go. Lily owed her everything. That's what Aunt Margaret reminded her of. Regularly. "You owe me, Lily, after everything I've done for you." And when the medical bills started piling up, Aunt Margaret's diabetes, the medications, the hospital stays, and when the mortgage payment notices turned red and threatening, Aunt Margaret had made it very clear what Lily could do to help. "Victor Hale is interested in you," she'd said, like it was a miracle. "His family has money, real money, and he wants to settle down, start a family. You could do worse, sweetheart, much worse." Lily had wanted to ask, "But do I love him?" She never did. Because she already knew the answer didn't matter. A knock at the door made her flinch. "Come in," she called, expecting Emma again. But it wasn't Emma. It was Victor. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, objectively handsome, the way a cologne ad model is handsome. Tall, clean-shaven, dark hair perfectly styled. His smile was warm and easy as he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Hey," he said softly. "I know it's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding, but I wanted to check on you." Lily stood quickly, smoothing her dress. "I'm fine." "You sure? You look pale." "Just nervous." "That makes two of us." He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. His palms were dry and warm, confident. "But we're going to be okay, Lily. I promise. This is going to be a good thing, for both of us." She searched his face, looking for something. Love, maybe? Or at least affection. But all she saw was that same pleasant, controlled expression he always wore, like he'd rehearsed it. "Victor," she started, then stopped. The words stuck in her throat like always. "What is it?" I want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons." His smile didn't waver. "We are. You need stability. I need a wife. It's a good match, Lily. Practical." Practical. There was that word again. "Right," she whispered. "Practical." He kissed her forehead, a gesture that felt more paternal than romantic, and headed for the door. "I'll see you out there. Don't be late. My mother's already having a nervous breakdown about the flower arrangements." Then he was gone. Lily stood there, her hands still raised like she was holding his, even though she was alone. Practical. The word echoed in her head, hollow and cold. She was doing the right thing, the smart thing, the thing everyone expected of her. She was securing her future, helping her aunt, making everyone's life easier. So why did she feel like she was walking toward a cliff? The minutes crawled by. Lily sat, stood, paced, checked her reflection obsessively, adjusting things that didn't need adjusting. The makeup artist had done a beautiful job, soft and natural, making her brown eyes look bigger, her pale skin luminous. She looked like a bride from a magazine. She looked nothing like herself. At some point, she realized she needed air. The room was suffocating, the walls closing in. She slipped out into the hallway, careful to avoid the main chapel where guests were gathering. Voices and laughter drifted through the building, echoing off the stone floors. She found herself wandering toward the back of the church, past administrative offices and Sunday school classrooms, looking for a quiet corner where she could just breathe for 5 minutes without someone asking if she was okay. That's when she heard the voices, low, urgent, coming from a small office with the door cracked open. She should have kept walking, but one of the voices was Victor's, and he didn't sound pleasant anymore. "Don't care what you have to do," Victor was saying. "Just make sure the transfers go through tonight. Once we're married, I'll have access to the trust. Then we move everything offshore before anyone notices." Lily froze. Another voice, male, unfamiliar, responded. "And the girl? She doesn't suspect anything?" Victor laughed. It was a sound Lily had never heard from him before. Cold. Sharp. Nothing like the warm, reassuring tone he used with her. "Lily, please." She's too scared of her own shadow to ask questions. That's why she's perfect. Quiet, grateful, easy to control. Her parents set up that trust before they died. 2 million untouchable until she's married. She doesn't even know it exists. Margaret made sure of that. The floor tilted under Lily's feet. "And Margaret gets her cut?" the other man asked. 20%, as promised. She was the one who suggested this whole thing in the first place. Played up the debt, the medical bills, convinced Lily she was a burden. The girl would marry a scarecrow if Margaret told her to. They both laughed. Lily's hand flew to her mouth, trapping the sound, trying to escape. "Smart," the unfamiliar voice said. "Cold, but smart." Business is business. Once the money's moved, I'll keep her around for appearances. Maybe a year, maybe 2. Then a quiet divorce, a generous settlement to keep her happy, and I'm done. She'll never know what hit her. What if she does find out? What if she... She won't, Victor interrupted, his voice hard. Because Lily Harper doesn't have the spine to stand up for herself. She never has. That's what makes this so easy. Silence. Then footsteps, heading toward the door. Lily stumbled backward, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She pressed herself against the wall, hidden in shadow, as Victor and the other man, a stranger in an expensive suit, emerged from the office. They didn't see her. They walked away, laughing about something else now, something mundane, like they hadn't just shattered her entire world. Lily stood there, shaking. $2 million. A trust her parents left, a scheme. Everything, the kindness, the proposal, the promises, all of it was a lie. Victor didn't want to marry her. He wanted to rob her. And Aunt Margaret had helped him do it. The woman who'd raised her, who'd taken her in, who Lily had been so desperate to help, to repay, to prove she wasn't a burden, had sold her. The realization hit like a punch to the stomach. Lily bent over, gasping for air, the corset too tight, the dress too heavy, the walls too close. Tears blurred her vision, hot and furious and helpless. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. But instead, she just stood there, frozen, doing what she'd always done. Nothing. You don't have the spine to stand up for yourself. Victor's words echoed in her head, vicious and true. He was right. She never stood up for herself, never questioned anything, never fought back. She just took whatever life handed her and swallowed her feelings and tried to be good, be grateful, be small enough that no one would notice her. And where had it gotten her? Here. About to marry a man who saw her as nothing more than a paycheck. The guests were gathering in the chapel. She could hear the hum of conversation, the shuffle of feet, the violinist warming up. In 20 minutes, the ceremony would start. In 20 minutes, she was supposed to walk down that aisle, take Victor's hand, and sign away her future. Her legs moved before her brain caught up. She didn't go back to the bride's room. She walked straight toward the side exit, the one that led to the parking lot. The rain was still falling, heavy and cold, drumming against the roof like a warning. Lily pushed open the door and stepped outside. The storm hit her immediately. Wind, rain, the smell of wet asphalt and ozone. Her dress soaked through in seconds, the delicate lace clinging to her skin. Her veil whipped around her face. Her carefully styled hair collapsed. She didn't care. She stood there in the downpour, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her fists clenched at her sides. Do something, she told herself. For once in your life, do something. But what? Where could she go? She had no money, no car, no plan. If she ran, where would she run to? Aunt Margaret's house? She'd just drag Lily back. Call Victor. Smooth everything over. Make Lily feel guilty for even thinking about leaving. You owe me. No, not anymore. Lily took a shaky breath and started walking. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't go back inside, couldn't walk down that aisle, couldn't say I do to a man who'd looked her in the eye and lied with every breath. She made it halfway across the parking lot before she heard her name. Lily! Emma's voice, high and panicked. Lily turned. Her cousin was standing in the doorway, eyes wide, rain already soaking her pink dress. What are you doing? Emma shouted over the storm. The ceremony's about to start. Lily opened her mouth to answer, but the words wouldn't come. Emma ran toward her, heels clicking on the wet pavement. Lily, come on! Everyone's waiting! You're going to ruin the dress! I can't, Lily whispered. What? I can't do this. Emma grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the building. Yes, you can. It's just nerves. Everyone gets cold feet. He doesn't love me. Emma stopped, blinked. What? Victor. He doesn't love me. He's marrying me for money. My parents left me a trust, and he's going to take it. Him and Aunt Margaret. They planned this whole thing. The words tumbled out, fast and broken and desperate. Emma stared at her. Lily, that's crazy. Where's this coming from? I heard him, just now. He was talking to someone, laughing about how easy I am to control. You're panicking, Emma interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. The same tone she used when Lily had anxiety attacks in high school. You're scared, and your brain is making things up to give you a reason to run. But this is Victor. He's a good guy. He wouldn't. He would. Lily pulled her arm free. He is. And I'm not marrying him. Emma's expression shifted, concern giving way to frustration. Lily, listen to yourself. You can't just walk away from this. Do you have any idea how much money has been spent on this wedding? How many people are here? Aunt Margaret will... I don't care. The words came out stronger than Lily expected. Emma blinked. What? I don't care, Lily repeated, louder this time. I don't care about the money or the guests or what Aunt Margaret thinks. I'm not doing this. For the first time in her life, saying no felt like breathing. Emma's face hardened. You're being selfish. Maybe. You're going to embarrass everyone. I know. Victor's family is going to be furious. Aunt Margaret is going to... I don't care. Emma stared at her, rainwater dripping from her hair, shock written across her face, like she'd never seen Lily before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe Lily had never seen herself before either. I have to go, Lily said quietly. Go where? You don't have anywhere to go. Lily didn't answer, because Emma was right, but staying felt like dying. She turned and started walking again, faster this time, her soaked dress heavy and clinging, her bare feet slipping on the wet pavement. She'd lost her shoes somewhere. Didn't matter. Behind her, Emma was shouting something, but the rain swallowed the words. Lily reached the edge of the parking lot where the church grounds met the main road. Cars hissed past, headlights cutting through the storm. She stood there, shivering, her hair plastered to her face, her heart beating so fast she thought she might pass out. Now what? A car pulled up beside her, a sleek black sedan, windows tinted, engine purring like a predator. The passenger window rolled down. You look like you could use a ride. The voice was male, deep, calm. Lily should have said no, should have backed away, should have been smart and careful and safe. Instead, she looked at the driver. He was watching her with an expression that was hard to read, not quite curious, not quite concerned, just attentive. He had dark eyes, sharp features, and the kind of stillness that suggested he didn't rattle easily. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive everything, dangerous. Every instinct Lily had screamed at her to walk away. But walking away meant going back. Back to the church. Back to Victor. Back to being the girl who never said no. She opened the door and got in. The man didn't ask questions, didn't even look surprised. He just waited until she'd closed the door, then pulled back onto the road. The interior of the car was warm and dry and smelled faintly of leather and rain. Lily sat there, dripping onto the expensive upholstery, her breath coming in shaky gasps. Where are we going? She finally asked. I don't know, the man said calmly. Where do you want to go? Lily stared at her hands, white-knuckled, trembling. Away. Away works. They drove in silence for a while, the rain hammering against the windshield, the city lights blurring past. Lily tried to process what she'd just done, tried to think about what came next, but her mind was blank, overwhelmed, drowning. You ran out on your wedding, the man said eventually. It wasn't a question. Lily glanced at him, startled. How did you... The dress kind of gives it away. Right, she was still in full bridal regalia, soaking wet, sitting in a stranger's car. This was insane. I'm Lily, she said, because apparently her brain had decided polite introductions were appropriate right now. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Adrian. Thank you for the ride. Don't thank me yet. He glanced at her, those dark eyes unreadable. You have somewhere to go? No. Family, friends? No. Anyone looking for you? Lily thought about Emma, about Aunt Margaret, about Victor realizing his investment had just bolted. Probably. Adrian nodded slowly, like he was piecing something together. You in trouble? Lily almost laughed. The sound came out broken. I don't even know anymore. He pulled into a parking garage, some downtown structure mostly empty at this hour, and killed the engine. Then he turned to face her fully, and the weight of his attention made her want to shrink. Here's what's going to happen, Adrian said, his voice calm but firm. You're going to tell me what you're running from. The truth, all of it, and then I'm going to decide whether to help you or dump you at the nearest police station. Lily's heart jumped. I didn't do anything illegal. Didn't say you did. But you're sitting in my car, soaking wet, clearly terrified, with no plan and no backup. That usually means one of two things. Either you're in danger or you're dangerous. So which is it? She should have been scared, should have demanded to be let out. But instead, she felt something crack open inside her, some dam she'd been holding back for years. And she told him everything. About her parents, the accident, Aunt Margaret, the debt that might not even be real, Victor's proposal, the overheard conversation, the trust she didn't know existed, the scheme to rob her blind and leave her with nothing. It poured out of her fast and messy and raw, and Adrian just listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just watched her with those sharp, calculating eyes. When she finally ran out of words, the silence felt enormous. "Okay," Adrian said eventually. "Okay? You're not dangerous, just unlucky." He leaned back in his seat, thinking. This Victor, he have a last name? Hale. Victor Hale. Something shifted in Adrian's expression, brief but unmistakable. Recognition. "You know him?" Lily asked. "I know of him." Adrian's voice had gone flat. "He works for some people I don't like." "What kind of people?" "The kind you don't want to owe money to." Lily's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Adrian studied her for a long moment, like he was deciding something. Then he sighed. "It means you just stepped into something bigger than a wedding scam, Lily Harper, and running away might have been the smartest thing you've ever done." "I don't understand." "You will." He started the car again. "But first, we're getting you out of that dress. You look like a drowned ghost." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. Relatively speaking." Lily wanted to ask more questions, but exhaustion was crashing over her like a wave. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her hollow and shaking. She leaned her head against the window, watching the rain-soaked city blur past. She'd done it. She'd actually said no. Walked away. Chosen herself over everyone else's expectations. And now she had no idea what happened next. All she knew was that she was in a car with a stranger who seemed to know more about her almost husband than she did. And for some reason, that felt safer than the church she'd just left behind. Adrian's apartment was nothing like Lily expected. She'd imagined something cold and sterile, chrome and glass, the kind of place that looked expensive but felt empty. Instead, she found herself standing in a converted loft with exposed brick walls, dark hardwood floors, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the rain-soaked city. Books lined one wall. Real books, not the decorative kind people bought to look smart. The furniture was minimal but lived in, and there was a faint scent of coffee and something else she couldn't place. Cedar, maybe. It felt like someone actually lived here. "Bathroom's through there," Adrian said, pointing to a door on the left. "There should be a robe on the hook, towels in the cabinet." Lily stood dripping on his floor, suddenly aware of how ridiculous she must look. The wedding dress had transformed from romantic to pathetic, clinging to her skin in wet, heavy folds. Her makeup was probably smeared down her face. She looked like a horror movie extra. "I don't have any other clothes," she said quietly. "I'll find you something." Adrian shrugged off his suit jacket and tossed it over a chair. His shirt was damp from the rain, clinging to his shoulders. "Go get warm. We'll figure out the rest." Lily hesitated. This was insane. She was in a strange man's apartment, wearing a wedding dress, with no money, no phone, no plan. Every rational thought in her head screamed that this was how people ended up on true crime podcasts. But the alternative was going back. And that felt worse than anything Adrian Moretti could possibly do to her. She locked herself in the bathroom and peeled off the dress. It took forever. The buttons ran down the entire back, tiny and intricate, designed to need help. Her fingers fumbled with them, numb from cold and shock. When the dress finally pooled at her feet, she felt lighter, like shedding a skin. The shower was hot enough to sting. Lily stood under the spray until her skin turned pink and her breathing slowed to something approaching normal. She washed her hair with whatever soap she found, something dark and masculine smelling, and watched the makeup and hairspray swirl down the drain. When she finally stepped out, wrapped in Adrian's bathrobe, charcoal gray, soft, way too big, she found clothes waiting on the bathroom counter, sweatpants with a drawstring waist, a plain black t-shirt, both clearly his, both absurdly large on her, but they were dry and warm, and they smelled clean. She rolled up the sleeves and pant legs and stepped back into the main room. Adrian was standing by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, his voice too low to make out words. When he saw her, he ended the call abruptly and pocketed the phone. "Better?" he asked. Lily nodded, suddenly self-conscious. Her damp hair hung in messy waves around her face. She probably looked like a drowned child playing dress-up. Adrian didn't comment. He just gestured to the couch. "Sit. You want coffee? Tea? Something stronger?" "Tea would be good." He disappeared into the kitchen, an open space separated from the living area by a granite counter. Lily sank onto the couch, curling her legs under her. The leather was buttery soft, worn in the way expensive things get when they're actually used. She watched Adrian move around the kitchen with the kind of efficiency that suggested he didn't need anyone's help with anything. He filled a kettle, grabbed mugs from a cabinet, dropped tea bags into both without asking what kind she wanted. Lily realized she'd never seen a man make tea before. Not like this, anyway. Not like it was normal. "So," Adrian said, his back still to her, "tell me about your parents." The question caught her off guard. "What?" "Your parents. You said they died 7 years ago. Car accident." "Yeah, why?" "Because Victor Hale doesn't marry random broke girls out of the kindness of his heart. And he doesn't go after small-time money. 2 million's not nothing, but it's not enough to warrant this level of setup unless there's more to the story." The kettle whistled. Adrian poured water into both mugs and carried them over, handing one to Lily before settling into the chair across from her. Lily wrapped her hands around the mug, grateful for the warmth. "I don't know what else there could be. My parents were just normal people. My dad was an accountant. My mom worked at a library. They weren't rich or important or... What kind of accountant?" "I don't know. The regular kind? Corporate? Private practice? Government?" Lily frowned. "I was 14 when they died. I didn't really pay attention to the details of his job." Adrian took a sip of his tea, watching her over the rim. "And the accident? What happened?" "They were driving home from dinner. It was raining, like tonight. A truck ran them off the road. The police said it was hydroplaning, just bad luck." "The police said." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means sometimes the police say what they're told to say." Lily's stomach tightened. "You think someone killed them?" "I think it's an interesting coincidence that your parents died in a car accident, leaving behind a trust fund you didn't know about, and now you're being set up to marry a man who works for people who specialize in making problems disappear." "What people? Who does Victor work for?" Adrian set his mug down. "Have you ever heard the name Castellano?" Lily shook her head. "Marcus Castellano runs one of the largest financial operations on the East Coast. Officially, he's a venture capitalist. Unofficially, he launders money for anyone who can pay his fee. Drug cartels, corrupt politicians, organized crime. If you've got dirty money that needs to look clean, Marcus is your guy." "And Victor works for him?" "Victor's one of his investment managers. On paper, he handles legitimate portfolios for legitimate clients. In reality, he moves money around so Marcus's friends can buy houses and cars and political campaigns without anyone asking questions." Lily felt sick. "So you're saying I was going to marry a criminal?" "I'm saying you were going to marry a guy who helps criminals. There's a difference, legally speaking, though not much of one morally." "How do you know all this?" Adrian's expression didn't change. "I pay attention." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting right now." They stared at each other across the coffee table. Lily wanted to be angry, wanted to demand real answers, but exhaustion was creeping in again. And honestly, did it matter how Adrian knew? He'd picked her up in the rain, given her shelter, listened to her fall apart without judgment. That was more than anyone else had done in years. "So what do I do?" she asked quietly. "If what you're saying is true, if Victor's connected to all this, then what happens when he realizes I'm gone? When he figures out I hurt him? Nothing good? That's comforting. You want comfort? Call a therapist. You want the truth? I'll give it to you straight." Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Right now, Victor thinks you're just a scared girl who got cold feet. He's probably at the church, smooth-talking your aunt, convincing everyone it's just wedding jitters. He'll try calling you. When you don't answer, he'll get worried. Not because he cares about you, but because $2 million just walked out the door. And then? Then he'll start looking, and when Victor Hale looks for something, he usually finds it." Lily's hands shook. Tea sloshed over the rim of the mug. "So I'm trapped. Either I go back and marry him, or I spend the rest of my life hiding. Or, Adrian said slowly, you figure out what he's really after. I told you. The trust fund. My parents left me $2 million. That's what he told his friend. Doesn't mean it's true. Lily blinked. Why would he lie about that? Because people lie about everything when money's involved, especially people like Victor. Adrian pulled out his phone and started typing. What was your father's full name? James Harper. Why? And your mother? Catherine. Adrian, what are you? Just wait. He was quiet for a minute, scrolling through whatever he'd found on his phone. His expression shifted, subtle, but Lily was starting to recognize the tells, the slight tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw set. He'd found something. Your father didn't just work as an accountant, Adrian said finally. He was a forensic accountant, specialized in tracking financial fraud for corporate investigations. Lily's breath caught. I didn't know that. And 3 months before he died, he was working on a case involving a venture capital firm accused of securities fraud. Adrian turned the phone so she could see the screen. Want to guess which firm? The headline read, Castellano Capital under investigation for investor fraud. Below it, a photo. A younger Marcus Castellano, flanked by lawyers, walking into a courthouse. My dad was investigating Victor's boss, Lily whispered. Not just investigating. According to this, your father found evidence of a massive embezzlement scheme. Castellano was stealing from his own investors, moving money offshore, covering it up with fake returns. Your dad had documentation, account numbers, transfer records, everything needed to put Castellano away for decades. So they killed him. The words came out flat, matter of fact. Like Lily was talking about someone else's father, someone else's life. Adrian set the phone down. The case fell apart after your parents died. Without your father's testimony and the evidence he'd compiled, the prosecutors had nothing. Castellano walked. And now, 7 years later, his employee is trying to marry the dead investigator's daughter. For the trust fund. Maybe. Or maybe for something your father left behind. Lily looked up sharply. What do you mean? Think about it. Your dad was about to blow the lid off one of the biggest financial crimes in the state. You really think he just kept all that evidence in a filing cabinet at work? People that careful make backups, hide insurance policies. Your father knew what he was dealing with. So you think he left something? Evidence that could still hurt Castellano? I think it's possible. And if Victor thinks you might know where it is, or if he thinks marrying you gives him legal access to whatever your parents left behind, then that trust fund is just the cover story. Lily's mind raced. She tried to remember the months after her parents died. The funeral, moving in with Aunt Margaret, the lawyers and paperwork, and endless questions she'd been too numb to process. Had there been other inheritance? Other assets? She didn't know. She'd been 14 and drowning and desperate to stop thinking about it. I don't have anything, she said. No secret files, no evidence. When my parents died, everything went to probate. Aunt Margaret handled it all. She said there was nothing left but debt and the house, which got sold to pay off the mortgage. And you believed her. She's my aunt. She raised me. Why wouldn't I believe her? Adrian didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth was settling over Lily like ice water. Aunt Margaret, who'd been so eager to marry her off to Victor, who'd convinced her she was a burden, a charity case, someone who owed everything to the family that took her in, who'd never once mentioned a trust fund or inheritance or anything that suggested Lily's parents had left her provided for. Because if Lily knew she had money, she wouldn't need saving, wouldn't need Victor, wouldn't be controllable. She knew, Lily said numbly. Aunt Margaret knew what Victor was, knew what happened to my parents, and she helped him anyway. For 20%, Adrian reminded her. People do ugly things for less. Lily set down her mug before she dropped it. Her hands were shaking too hard to hold anything. I don't understand. If they wanted whatever my dad left behind, why go through all this? Why not just search for it themselves? Why marry me? Because maybe they already looked and couldn't find it. Or maybe whatever your father hid, he hid it in a way that only you could access. A safe deposit box in your name. A password you'd recognize. Something that requires your cooperation or consent. But I don't know anything. They don't know that. And even if they did, marriage gives Victor legal standing, shared assets, power of attorney if something were to happen to you. The implication hit like a fist. You think he'd kill me. I think if you'd gone through with that wedding, you would have had a very short, very tragic marriage. Probably another accident, another rainy night. Adrian's voice was cold, clinical. And then Victor Hale would have been your grieving widower with full access to everything your parents left behind. Lily couldn't breathe. The room tilted. She'd been 10 minutes away from walking down that aisle, 10 minutes from signing her life over to a man who'd probably already planned her funeral. The nausea hit hard and fast. Lily bolted for the bathroom and barely made it before she was sick, retching into the toilet, her whole body shaking. When there was nothing left, she slumped against the wall, tears streaming down her face. She'd been so stupid, so naive. All those months of being grateful that someone like Victor would want someone like her, and he'd never wanted her at all. She'd been a mark, a transaction, a problem to solve, and she'd almost let him win. A knock at the door. Adrian's voice, quiet. You okay? No, Lily managed. Can I come in? She should have said no. Should have wanted privacy, dignity, space. But she was so tired of being alone. Yeah. The door opened. Adrian stepped in carrying a glass of water. He handed it to her without comment, then sat on the edge of the bathtub, giving her space but staying close. Lily rinsed her mouth and drank, grateful for something to do with her hands. I really thought I was doing the right thing, she said finally. Marrying him, helping my aunt, being responsible. And the whole time I was just being used. That's what people like Victor do. They find the soft spots and press until you break. Well, it worked. Did it? Because from where I'm sitting, you're the one who walked away. Lily looked at him. Adrian was watching her with that same steady, unreadable expression. No pity, no judgment, just attention. I ran away, she said. That's not the same as being strong. Running away kept you alive. I'd call that pretty strong. I didn't even have a plan. I just panicked. Plans are overrated. Panic's honest. Despite everything, Lily almost smiled. Almost. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the rain still drumming against the windows. What do I do now? Lily asked. If Victor's looking for me, if Castellano's involved, if there's something my parents hid that I don't even know about, what am I supposed to do? You have two options, Adrian said. Option 1, disappear. I can help with that. New city, new name, new life. You'd have to leave everything behind, but you'd be safe. And option 2, you fight back. Lily almost laughed. Fight back? Against organized crime? I'm a waitress with no money, no connections, and no idea what I'm doing. You're the daughter of a man who nearly destroyed Marcus Castellano. That counts for something. It counts for a target on my back. You already have that. At least this way you'd be doing something about it. Lily pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. The borrowed sweatpants bunched awkwardly. She felt small and lost and ridiculous. I wouldn't even know where to start, she admitted. We start with your parents' things. Whatever your aunt didn't sell or throw away. Anything they might have left that could point us toward what your father hid. Aunt Margaret got rid of everything. She said it was too painful to keep. She say that before or after Victor came into the picture? Lily thought back, tried to remember. After, I think. Maybe a year after. So she got rid of evidence, smart. Then there's nothing left to find. Maybe. Or maybe your aunt's not as thorough as she thinks. Adrian stood, offering Lily a hand up. Either way, sitting here isn't going to solve anything. You need rest. Real rest. We'll figure out the next move in the morning. Lily let him pull her to her feet. She felt wrung out, hollow, like someone had scooped out her insides and left nothing but exhausted confusion. Where am I supposed to sleep? Bedroom's yours. I'll take the couch. Adrian, this is your apartment. I can't just... You can and you will. Arguing about it wastes time. He guided her toward a door she hadn't noticed before. Inside was a simple bedroom, gray sheets, dark furniture, more books. It looked exactly like what she'd expected. Clean, minimal, impersonal. Except for the framed photo on the nightstand. A younger Adrian, maybe early 20s, standing between two people who had to be his parents. His mother's arm around his shoulders. His father's hand on his back. all three of them smiling at the camera like they'd never known sadness. Lily looked away, feeling like she'd seen something private. "There's a lock on the door," Adrian said from the doorway. "Use it if it makes you feel better." "You're not going to murder me in my sleep? If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have picked you up in the first place." It should have been terrifying. Instead, it was oddly comforting. "Thank you," Lily said quietly, "for everything. I know this is a lot." Adrian shrugged. "I've had stranger nights." Somehow I believe that. He almost smiled. Almost. "Get some sleep, Lily Harper. Tomorrow's going to be complicated." Then he was gone, pulling the door shut behind him. Lily stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed door. Then she locked it. Not because she didn't trust Adrian, but because old habits died hard, and collapsed onto the bed. The sheets smelled like laundry detergent and that same cedar scent from the living room. Clean, safe. Nothing like the floral perfume Aunt Margaret insisted on, or the cologne Victor wore that always made her eyes water. Just clean. Lily closed her eyes and waited for sleep to find her. It didn't come easy. Every time she started to drift, her mind would jolt back to the church. Victor's laugh. Aunt Margaret's betrayal. The wedding that didn't happen. The life she'd almost signed away. And beneath it all, a question that wouldn't stop echoing. What had her father found? What evidence had been worth killing for? And why, after 7 years, did anyone still care? The rain kept falling. Somewhere in the apartment she heard Adrian moving around. The quiet clink of glass, water running. The apartment settling into night. Lily pulled the blankets tighter and tried not to think about tomorrow. Tried not to think about the fact that somewhere out there, Victor was looking for her. That Aunt Margaret was probably calling her phone, leaving voicemails full of guilt and manipulation. That she'd torched her entire life in the span of 2 hours and had nothing to show for it but wet hair and borrowed clothes. But beneath the fear, beneath the exhaustion, something else flickered. Something small and stubborn and new. For the first time in 7 years, Lily had made a choice. A real choice. Not the safe one or the expected one or the one everyone told her to make. She'd chosen herself. And maybe that was enough to start with. Eventually, exhaustion won. Lily drifted into a restless sleep full of half-formed dreams, her father's face just out of focus. Her mother's voice calling her name. Rain and headlights, and the sound of screeching brakes. She woke once in the middle of the night, disoriented and panicked, unsure where she was. Then she remembered. Adrian's apartment, the locked door, the borrowed bed. Safe. For now. She turned over and fell back into darkness. Morning came too fast and too bright. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows, and for a disoriented moment, Lily thought she was back in her cramped bedroom at Aunt Margaret's house. Then the events of the previous night crashed back like a wave, and she remembered everything. The wedding, the conversation, the rain. Adrian. She sat up slowly, her body aching in ways that had nothing to do with physical pain. The borrowed clothes were twisted around her from restless sleep. Her throat felt raw, probably from crying, though she only half remembered doing it. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Lily unlocked the bedroom door and stepped out cautiously. The living room was empty, morning light washing everything in gold. The rain had stopped sometime during the night, leaving the city outside scrubbed clean and gleaming. Adrian's suit jacket still hung over the chair where he'd left it. His shoes were by the door, but the man himself was nowhere to be seen. For a terrible second, Lily wondered if he'd left, just walked out and abandoned her here, realized overnight that helping a runaway bride was more trouble than it was worth. Then she heard voices. Low, tense, coming from the kitchen. Adrian was on the phone again, his back to her, one hand braced against the counter. He changed into dark jeans and a black t-shirt that made him look less like the polished stranger from last night and more like someone who could handle trouble without breaking a sweat. "I don't care what he thinks he knows," Adrian was saying, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You tell Marcus that if he comes after her, we're going to have a much bigger problem than a missing bride." Lily froze. "No, I'm not bluffing. And you can remind him exactly what happened the last time he underestimated me." A pause. "Good. Then we understand each other." He ended the call and stood there for a moment, head down, breathing like he was fighting to stay calm. Lily cleared her throat. Adrian turned, and whatever darkness had been on his face vanished so quickly she almost thought she'd imagined it. "You're up. Who are you talking to?" "Someone who needed a reminder about boundaries." He moved to the coffee maker, pouring 2 cups like nothing had happened. "Sleep okay?" "You just threatened Marcus Castellano." "I made a phone call. There's a difference." "Adrian, coffee." He held out a mug. Lily took it, more out of reflex than actual desire for caffeine. Her hands were shaking again. "What did you mean? What happened the last time? What happened between you and Castellano?" Adrian took a long drink of his coffee, buying time. Then he sighed. 3 years ago, Marcus tried to force me into a business deal I didn't want. When I said no, he made it clear that wasn't an option, so I made it clear what would happen if he pushed. "What did you do?" "I exposed one of his shell companies to the SEC, cost him about $40 million and a year of legal headaches." Adrian's expression was unreadable. "He learned not to push." "So you're what, some kind of corporate vigilante?" "I'm someone who doesn't like being told what to do." "That's not an answer." "It's the one you're getting." Adrian set down his mug. "Look, my history with Marcus doesn't matter right now. What matters is that I made it very clear you're under my protection. He won't touch you as long as I'm in the picture." "And Victor?" "Victor's a foot soldier. He'll do whatever Marcus tells him to do. Right now, Marcus is telling him to back off and wait." "Wait for what?" "For me to lose interest. For you to run out of options. For an opening." Adrian met her eyes. "Which is why we're not giving him one." Lily sank onto one of the bar stools, cradling the coffee mug. The warmth felt good against her palms, grounding. "I don't understand why you're doing this. You don't know me. This isn't your problem." "Maybe I'm making it my problem." "But why?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, studying her with that same intense attention that made her want to look away. Finally he said, "Because 7 years ago, someone should have helped your parents, and no one did." The words hit harder than Lily expected. She looked down at her coffee, blinking back the sudden sting in her eyes. "We need to move fast," Adrian continued, his tone shifting to business. "Marcus might be backing off for now, but Victor's going to get desperate. A $2 million payday just vanished, and he's going to want it back. That means he'll come looking." "So what do we do?" "We find what your father hid before Victor does, and we figure out exactly what we're dealing with." Lily thought about Aunt Margaret's house, about the attic where her parents' remaining belongings had been stored before everything was sold or donated, about the boxes she'd been too heartbroken to go through, the memories she'd been too scared to face. "My aunt got rid of most of their stuff," Lily said slowly. "But there might be something left. Storage boxes in the garage. She never threw those away, just kept saying she'd deal with them eventually." "Then that's where we start." "She's not going to just let me walk in and search the garage." "That's why we're not asking permission." Adrian pulled out his phone and started typing. "What time does your aunt usually leave the house?" "She has a standing nail appointment every Thursday at 10. Takes about 2 hours." "Today's Thursday. Perfect." Adrian glanced at the clock on the wall. "That gives us 3 hours to get ready." "Get ready for what exactly?" "Breaking and entering. Well, entering. You grew up there, so technically it's just entering." "That's still illegal." "So is fraud and conspiracy to commit murder, but that didn't stop your aunt and Victor." Adrian looked at her. "You want answers or not?" Lily did want answers. She wanted them so badly it felt like hunger. But the thought of going back to that house, of facing Aunt Margaret's space, even when she wasn't there, made her stomach churn. "I don't have keys anymore," she said. "Margaret took them back when I moved out." "Do you remember the security code?" "She never changed it. Same 4 digits since I was 15. "Then we're fine." Adrian grabbed his jacket from the chair. "Get dressed. We leave in 20. Lily wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways this could go wrong. But Adrian was already moving, gathering things with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, and she realized arguing was pointless. She went back to the bedroom and stared at the pile of borrowed clothes, the sweatpants and t-shirt she'd slept in, the wedding dress, still damp and crumpled in the corner of the bathroom where she'd left it. A knock at the door. "Yeah?" Adrian's voice muffled through the wood. "There's clothes in the closet, second shelf. Should fit better than what you're wearing." Lily opened the closet and found women's clothes. Nice ones. Jeans in her size, a soft gray sweater, even shoes that looked like they'd fit. Her stomach dropped. She opened the door. Adrian was halfway down the hall. "Whose clothes are these?" she asked. He stopped but didn't turn around. "Someone who doesn't need them anymore." "Adrian, her name was Sarah. We were together for 2 years. She died 18 months ago." His voice was flat, emotionless. "The clothes are clean. They fit. That's all that matters." Then he walked away, leaving Lily standing in the doorway with her heart in her throat. She almost didn't wear them, almost went back to the sweatpants out of some misplaced sense of respect for a woman she'd never met. But Adrian was right. They fit. And she didn't have anything else. The jeans were comfortable, worn in. The sweater was softer than anything Lily had owned in years. The shoes were a little tight, but manageable. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone who looked almost normal, not a runaway bride, not a victim. Just a girl in borrowed clothes trying to survive. It would have to be enough. Adrian was waiting by the door when she emerged, keys in hand. He gave her a quick once-over, nodded, and said nothing about the clothes. Nothing about Sarah. Nothing about the fact that Lily was wearing a dead woman's wardrobe. They just left. The drive to Aunt Margaret's house took 30 minutes through morning traffic. Adrian drove in silence, his expression unreadable, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console. Lily watched the city slide past and tried not to think about what they were about to do. "You nervous?" Adrian asked eventually. "Terrified." "Good. Means you're paying attention." He turned onto a familiar street, and Lily's chest tightened. "When we get there, we move fast, in and out. We find anything that looks relevant, papers, photos, files, old computers, whatever, and we take it. What if someone sees us? Your aunt's neighbors know you. If anyone asks, you're picking up some old things Margaret said you could have. And if Margaret comes back early? Then we leave. Fast." He pulled to a stop 3 houses down from Aunt Margaret's place. A modest 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a meticulously maintained lawn. Lily had lived there for 6 years. It should have felt like home. It felt like enemy territory. "You sure about this?" Adrian asked quietly. Lily looked at the house, remembered the girl she'd been when she moved in. 14, broken, desperate to be good enough to deserve the charity she'd been given. Desperate to be quiet and grateful and small. That girl would have turned around. That girl would have gone back to Victor, apologized for the inconvenience, signed whatever papers they put in front of her. But that girl had walked down the aisle last night. Lily wasn't her anymore. "I'm sure," she said. They got out of the car. The morning air was crisp and clean after the rain, carrying the scent of wet grass and fresh asphalt. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful, like the kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever happened. Lily knew better now. The garage was detached, set back from the main house. Adrian picked the lock in under 30 seconds, working with the casual competence of someone who'd done this 100 times. The door swung open with a soft creak. Inside, the garage was cluttered with the accumulated debris of decades: old furniture, holiday decorations, gardening tools, boxes stacked floor to ceiling. The musty smell of storage and neglect hung heavy in the air. "Where?" Adrian asked. Lily pointed to the far corner. "Back there, the boxes with my mom's handwriting." They picked their way through the clutter. Lily's heart was hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every car passing by could be Aunt Margaret coming home early. The boxes were exactly where she remembered. 4 of them, brown cardboard, tops sealed with packing tape that had yellowed with age. Her mother's neat printing labeled each one: kitchen, books, office, personal. Adrian pulled out a pocket knife and sliced through the tape on the first box. Inside, Lily found exactly what the label promised: kitchen items. Mismatched mugs, dish towels, a set of measuring spoons with cartoon chickens on them, the kind of random stuff that survives a move because it's too much trouble to sort through. Nothing important. The second box was books. Mysteries mostly. Her mother had loved mysteries. Lily's throat tightened as she recognized titles she remembered from childhood. Books her mom used to read in the evenings, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea. Adrian was already moving to the third box. Office supplies. Files full of old tax returns, insurance documents, mortgage papers. He flipped through them quickly, checking dates, looking for anything that stood out. "Here," he said suddenly. He pulled out a file folder, thicker than the others, labeled simply Work. Inside were papers covered in her father's handwriting. Notes, account numbers, transaction records, pages of financial data that meant nothing to Lily, but clearly meant something to Adrian. His expression had gone sharp, focused. "This is it. These are case files. Your father was documenting everything." "Is it enough? To prove what Castellano did?" "Maybe. These are copies, not originals, but there's enough here to—" Adrian stopped mid-sentence, his head snapping toward the door. "Someone's coming." Lily heard it a second later. A car pulling into the driveway. A door slamming. "Aunt Margaret." "I thought you said she'd be gone until noon," Adrian hissed. "She usually is." "Well, she's not today. Move." Adrian shoved the file folder into his jacket and started grabbing whatever else looked important. Lily's hands shook as she tried to help, scooping up random papers, not even sure what she was taking. The front door of the house opened. Aunt Margaret's voice carried across the yard, loud and irritated, talking to someone on the phone. "I don't care what Victor says, Emma. Lily is being dramatic, and I'm not going to indulge it. She'll come crawling back when she realizes how good she had it." Emma's voice, faint but audible. Lily's cousin, probably trying to mediate. "No, I haven't heard from her," Margaret continued. "And frankly, after the embarrassment she caused last night, I'm not interested in—" "Hold on." Footsteps, coming toward the garage. Adrian grabbed Lily's arm and pulled her toward the back of the garage, behind a stack of old furniture. They crouched in the narrow space, barely breathing, as the garage door swung open. Margaret stood silhouetted in the doorway, phone still pressed to her ear. "Let me call you back." She stepped inside. Lily pressed herself against the wall, her heart threatening to explode. If Margaret walked another 10 feet, she'd see them. There was no way out. No back door. No escape. Margaret moved deeper into the garage, her footsteps slow and deliberate. She was looking for something, or checking to see if anything was missing. Lily could see her now through a gap in the furniture. Her aunt looked older than she remembered, tired. There were new lines around her eyes, gray streaking through her dark hair. Margaret stopped in front of the boxes, the ones they'd just been searching. She stared at them for a long moment, then bent down and picked up a piece of packing tape that Adrian had dropped. Her expression hardened. "I know you're in here, Lily," Margaret said quietly. Lily's blood turned to ice. "I saw the car down the street. I know you're not alone." Margaret didn't raise her voice, didn't sound angry, just tired. "You might as well come out." Adrian's hand tightened on Lily's arm, a silent warning. "Don't move, don't speak." But Margaret was walking toward them now, her steps slow and measured. "I did what I had to do," Margaret said, still talking to the space where she thought Lily was hiding. "You don't understand how much I sacrificed for you, how much it cost to raise you, to feed you, to give you a home. You owed me, Lily. You owed me everything." "I was a child," Lily heard herself say. The words came out before she could stop them. Margaret's head snapped toward the sound. She rounded the furniture stack and found them crouched there like criminals. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Margaret's expression shifted. Not anger, something worse. Disappointment. "Who's this?" she asked, looking at Adrian. "Someone who's not going to let you sell her to the highest bidder," Adrian said calmly, rising to his full height. He didn't look scared, didn't look guilty, just looked like a man who'd been caught doing exactly what he meant to be doing and didn't care. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Adrian Moretti, I should have known. You know who I am? Victor mentioned you might be a problem." Margaret turned back to Lily. "Is this who you ran to? You barely know him, Lily. How do you know he's not using you too?" "He's not," Lily said, though she wasn't entirely sure herself. "Everyone uses everyone, sweetheart. That's how the world works. Victor was at least offering you stability. What's this one offering? Danger? A life on the run?" "The truth," Lily said. "He's offering me the truth, which is more than you ever did." Margaret flinched like she'd been slapped. "I protected you. You sold me. I gave you an opportunity. You gave Victor access to my inheritance. You helped him plan to rob me blind, maybe kill me, all so you could get your 20%. Lily's voice was shaking but steady. You knew what happened to my parents. You knew, and you helped the people responsible. That's not... Margaret stopped, her mouth tightening. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I can't. Won't. Lily, please. Margaret reached for her. Adrian stepped between them, smooth and casual, but unmistakably blocking access. I think we're done here. Margaret's expression went cold. You're making a mistake, both of you. Victor has friends, powerful friends, and when they find out you took those files, then they'll deal with me, Adrian said, not her. You can't protect her forever. Watch me. They stared at each other, and Lily saw something pass between them. Some understanding, some acknowledgement that they were playing a game with rules she didn't understand. Then Adrian turned to Lily. We're leaving. Now. He grabbed the box labeled office and headed for the door. Lily followed, her legs shaky, her heart still racing. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back. Margaret stood in the middle of the garage, surrounded by boxes and memories and the debris of the life she'd built on lies. She looked small suddenly, fragile. Did you ever even care about me? Lily asked quietly. Margaret's eyes were wet. Every day of your life. I don't believe you. I know. Lily walked out into the sunlight and didn't look back. Adrian had already loaded the box into the car. He was on the phone again, speaking in rapid-fire sentences Lily couldn't quite catch. When he saw her, he ended the call. Get in. Lily climbed into the passenger seat. Her hands were still shaking. She felt like she might throw up again. Adrian started the engine and pulled away from the curb, his expression grim. She's going to call Victor, Lily said. I know. He's going to come after us. Let him. Adrian, we got what we came for. Now we figure out what it means. He glanced at her. You did good back there. I confronted my aunt in a garage. That's not exactly heroic. You stood up for yourself. That's more heroic than you think. Lily didn't feel heroic. She felt exhausted and scared and utterly out of her depth. But she'd done it. She'd faced Margaret. She'd taken what belonged to her, and she was still standing. That had to count for something. They drove back to Adrian's apartment in tense silence. Lily kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see Victor's car following them. But the street stayed empty. Normal. Like the whole world hadn't just tilted on its axis. Back at the loft, Adrian spread the contents of the box across the coffee table. Files, papers, photos, years of her father's work, compiled and cataloged with meticulous care. What are we looking for? Lily asked. Anything that connects to Castellano. Anything that might explain why this is worth killing for. Adrian started sorting through papers, his movements quick and efficient. Your father was smart. If he hid something, there'll be a trail. We just have to find it. Lily picked up a file at random. Inside were bank statements for accounts she didn't recognize, transfers between numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Luxembourg, amounts that made her dizzy. These numbers, she said slowly, they're huge. Marcus Castellano laundered over $200 million through his firm, Adrian said without looking up. What you're holding is probably just a fraction of it. And my dad found all this? Your dad was good at his job. Too good. Lily set down the file and picked up a photo instead. Her parents, younger than she remembered, standing in front of their house. Her dad had his arm around her mom's shoulders. They looked happy. Safe. They didn't know. Lily stared at the photo of her parents and felt the weight of that truth settle into her bones. Her mother and father had gone to dinner that night 7 years ago thinking they'd come home, thinking they'd see their daughter in the morning. They'd had no idea those were their last hours. Or maybe they had. Maybe that's why her father had been so careful, so thorough. There's something here, Adrian said, breaking through her thoughts. He was holding a small leather notebook, flipping through pages covered in her father's cramped handwriting. These aren't just account numbers, they're passwords, access codes. Lily set down the photo. For what? Storage. Cloud servers, secure email, encrypted drives. Your father didn't just document the fraud, he backed everything up digitally. Adrian looked up, his expression sharp with realization. This is what they've been looking for, not the hard copies, the digital trail. But if my dad had all that, why didn't the prosecutors use it? Why did the case fall apart? Because they couldn't access it. These passwords are randomized, 16 characters, mix of numbers and symbols. Without the key, without knowing where to look, this data might as well not exist. Adrian tapped the notebook. But your father knew. He left breadcrumbs. For who? The prosecutors? For you. The words hung in the air between them. Lily shook her head. I was 14. What was I supposed to do with encrypted files and offshore account numbers? Nothing. Not then. But eventually, when you were old enough to understand, old enough to be safe? Adrian held up the notebook. Your father was playing the long game. He knew if something happened to him, you'd inherit everything. And someday, when you needed it, you'd find this. That's insane. That's smart. He was protecting you and building a dead man's switch at the same time. Adrian started typing on his phone, photographing pages. If Castellano had known about this, you'd have been in danger years ago. But your aunt convinced everyone you were just some orphaned kid with nothing to your name, made you invisible. So she was protecting me? Or protecting herself? Hard to say. Adrian paused, studying a page more closely. Either way, the moment you got engaged to Victor, that changed. Marriage would have given him legal access to your assets. He could have started digging, found the trust, traced it back to your parents' estate. Eventually, he would have found this. Lily's phone buzzed. She'd turned it off last night, but Adrian had insisted she turn it back on this morning. To see who comes looking, he'd said. Now the screen showed 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, texts that made the notification counter stop bothering to count. Most were from Aunt Margaret, a few from Emma, several from numbers Lily didn't recognize, and 12 from Victor. Don't answer, Adrian said, not looking up from the notebook. I wasn't planning to, but her thumb hovered over Victor's name anyway. Some horrible, self-destructive part of her wanted to hear what he'd say, wanted to know if he'd even bother pretending to care, or if he'd dropped the mask entirely now that she'd ruined his plan. She opened the voicemail instead, put it on speaker. Victor's voice filled the apartment, smooth and concerned and so perfectly calibrated it made her skin crawl. Lily, sweetheart, where are you? Everyone's worried sick. Your aunt said you were upset that you needed some air, but it's been almost 24 hours. Whatever's going on, we can talk about it. Just come home, okay? We'll figure this out together. The next message, from an hour later, had a sharper edge. Lily, this isn't funny anymore. You embarrassed my family, humiliated your aunt, and wasted a lot of people's time and money. I think you owe us an explanation. Call me back. The third message dropped the pretense entirely. I know you took something from Margaret's house. I know you're with Adrian Moretti. You have no idea what you're getting into, Lily. He's not your friend. He's using you to get to people he has no business messing with. Come back now, and we can forget this happened. Stay with him, and things are going to get very complicated very fast. Adrian laughed, sharp and humorless. Subtle. The fourth message was from this morning. Victor's voice had gone cold, stripped of any pretense of affection. You've made your choice. Fine. But you should know that Adrian can't protect you forever. And when he's done with whatever game he's playing, you're going to find yourself very alone with very dangerous people looking for you. Last chance, Lily. Call me back before noon or I stop being nice about this. The deadline had passed 3 hours ago. Lily deleted the messages and tossed the phone onto the couch like it had burned her. He's right about one thing, she said quietly. You can't protect me forever. Eventually, I'm going to have to figure out how to protect myself. That's the plan. Is it? Because right now it feels like I'm just hiding behind you while you fight my battles. Adrian set down the notebook and looked at her. Really looked at her, in that way he had that made her feel exposed and seen at the same time. You ran from your own wedding, he said. Stood up to your aunt, walked into potential danger to get these files. You're already fighting, Lily. You just haven't figured out what weapon you're holding yet. And what weapon is that? He picked up the notebook again. The truth. Your father spent months compiling evidence against one of the most powerful financial criminals on the East Coast. That evidence is still out there, encrypted and waiting. If we can access it, if we can get it to the right people, Castellano goes down, Victor goes down, Everyone involved in your parents' deaths faces consequences. And what happens to me? You get justice. You get closure. You get your life back. Lily wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that there was some neat resolution waiting at the end of this nightmare. But life wasn't that clean. People like Castellano didn't just go to prison because someone had evidence. They had lawyers, politicians, money that made problems disappear. We need help, Lily said. We can't do this alone. Who do you trust? I don't know anymore. I thought I could trust my aunt. I thought Victor was a good man. I'm not exactly great at judging character. What about your cousin, Emma? Lily thought about Emma standing in the rain, begging her to go through with the wedding, calling her selfish, looking at her like she'd lost her mind. But Emma had also been there when Lily's parents died, had held her when she cried, had taught her how to do makeup and talk to boys and survive high school. Emma was complicated, messy, too loyal to their aunt sometimes, but she wasn't evil. Maybe, Lily said, but I don't think she knows the whole truth. Margaret probably fed her the same story she fed everyone else. Adrian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something in his expression shifted. I need to take this. He stepped out onto the balcony, sliding the glass door shut behind him. Through the window, Lily watched him pace, one hand in his hair, his jaw tight. Whatever the conversation was, it wasn't good. She turned back to the files spread across the coffee table. There was so much here, years of her father's work, evidence of crimes she barely understood, and somewhere in all of it, the reason her parents had died. She picked up another photo. This one was of her, maybe 6 years old, sitting on her father's shoulders at some park she didn't remember. She was laughing, her hands in his hair, her whole face lit up with joy. Her father was looking up at her with this expression of pure love, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. He'd died trying to protect people, trying to expose corruption and hold criminals accountable. He'd been a good man doing the right thing, and it had killed him. Lily set down the photo before the tears could start. Adrian came back inside, his expression grim. What's wrong? Lily asked. That was a contact of mine, someone who keeps an ear to the ground about Castellano's operations. Adrian locked his phone and shoved it in his pocket. Victor's been making calls, lots of calls. He's telling people you stole something that belongs to him, that you're unstable, dangerous, need to be found for your own safety. I didn't steal anything. Those files belong to my father. Doesn't matter. He's building a narrative, making you the problem, and he's got people looking. What kind of people? Adrian's silence was answer enough. We need to move, he said finally. This apartment's not safe anymore. If Victor's got resources working for him, they'll find this address eventually. Where do we go? I have a place. Outside the city. Off the grid. We can work from there, access the encrypted files, figure out our next move. And then what? We hide forever? We hide until we have enough ammunition to strike back. Adrian started gathering the files, shoving them back into the box. Your father built a case, Lily. A real one. If we can access those files, we can finish what he started. And if we can't? He didn't answer. They packed quickly, efficiently. Adrian moved through the apartment like he'd done this before, grabbing go bags that were already prepared, loading electronics into a backpack, clearing out anything that might matter. He gave Lily a duffel bag and told her to pack the clothes from the bedroom. Sarah's clothes. Lily tried not to think about that as she folded jeans and sweaters, tried not to wonder what Sarah had been like, how she'd died, whether she'd known what Adrian did for a living, whether she'd loved him, whether he'd loved her back. She found a jewelry box on the dresser. Inside, a simple silver bracelet with a tiny charm in the shape of a bird. Lily put it back and closed the box. 15 minutes later, they were in the car, heading north out of the city. The afternoon sun was bright and harsh, making everything look washed out and surreal. Lily watched the buildings thin out, replaced by suburbs, then farmland, then nothing but highway and trees. How did Sarah die? She asked. Adrian's hands tightened on the wheel. Car accident. Like my parents. No, not like your parents. His voice was tight. Sarah's accident was just an accident. Wrong place, wrong time, drunk driver running a red light. There was no conspiracy, no hidden agenda, just bad luck. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was 18 months ago. I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Lily could hear it in his voice, see it in the rigid set of his shoulders. But she didn't push. She understood grief, understood the way it lived inside you, quiet and permanent, a low-level ache you learned to carry. They drove in silence for another hour. The landscape turned rural, trees pressing in on both sides of the narrow road. Adrian turned onto a dirt path that barely qualified as a driveway, following it deep into the woods until a small cabin appeared through the trees. It was nothing like his apartment. This was rough, isolated, the kind of place people went to disappear. Solar panels on the roof, a well pump in the yard, windows covered with security film. "What is this place?" Lily asked. "Insurance." Adrian killed the engine. "I bought it 3 years ago, cash, under a name that doesn't exist. No one knows about it except me. And now me. And now you." Inside the cabin was sparse but functional. One main room with a kitchenette, a wood stove, a table and chairs, a small bedroom off to the side, a bathroom that looked like it had been added as an afterthought. Everything was clean, organized, ready to be used at a moment's notice. Adrian set down the box of files and immediately started setting up his laptop on the table. He worked quickly, plugging in external drives, pulling up programs Lily didn't recognize. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Accessing your father's servers. These passwords should get us in, assuming the accounts are still active." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "This might take a while." Lily wandered to the window and looked out at the woods. The trees were thick here, old-growth forest that swallowed sound and light. She could hear birds, nothing else. It felt like the edge of the world. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from an unknown number. "Lily, this is Emma. Please call me. I'm worried about you. Whatever's going on with Victor and my mom, we can figure it out. Just tell me you're safe." Lily stared at the message. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she typed back. "I'm safe. I can't talk yet, but I need you to trust me. Your mom lied about a lot of things. So did Victor. I'll explain when I can." She hit send before fear could stop her. Emma's response came almost immediately. "What things? What are you talking about?" Lily hesitated. How much could she say? How much should she say? Adrian glanced up from his laptop. "Who is it?" "Emma. She's asking questions." "Don't answer. Not yet. We don't know who she's talked to." "She's my cousin. She wouldn't—" "She's also your aunt's daughter, and your aunt is in bed with Victor, who's in bed with Castellano." "Family doesn't mean safe." Adrian turned back to his screen. "Not in this situation." Lily wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. She pocketed the phone without responding and went to help Adrian. He had multiple windows open now, lines of code scrolling past faster than she could read. "Anything?" she asked. "Your father was paranoid in the best possible way. He set up multiple redundant systems, each with different access protocols. We're through the first layer, but there's more. Biometric locks, security questions, time-delayed access. So we're stuck. We're patient." Adrian pulled out the notebook again, cross-referencing entries with what was on screen. "Your father didn't build this to keep people out forever. He built it to keep the wrong people out. There'll be a way through." Lily watched him work, his focus absolute. She wondered if this was what he'd been like before Sarah died. If he'd always been this intense, this driven, or if loss had carved that into him. She wondered if it was being carved into her too. Hours passed. The sun set behind the trees, plunging the cabin into darkness. Adrian turned on a single lamp, its light casting shadows across the walls. He barely moved, barely blinked, just kept working through security layers with methodical determination. Lily made coffee, then sandwiches neither of them ate, then sat on the couch and tried to read a book she found on the shelf, but the words wouldn't stick. Around midnight, Adrian swore. "What?" Lily sat up. "Biometric lock. I need a fingerprint to access the next layer." He looked at her. "Your fingerprint." "Mine? Why would my dad use my fingerprint?" "Because you're the only person he'd trust completely. Because at 14 you weren't a threat to anyone. Because he was building this for you." Adrian gestured to the laptop. "Come here." Lily crossed to the table. On screen was a prompt. Biometric authentication required. Adrian pulled out a small device from his bag. Some kind of portable scanner. Put your thumb on this. How did you? I plan ahead, just do it. Lily pressed her thumb to the scanner. It lit up, capturing the print, transmitting data to the laptop. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the screen changed. Access granted. Adrian smiled, sharp and satisfied. Your father knew exactly what he was doing. Files started appearing, hundreds of them. Spreadsheets, documents, scanned images, audio recordings, video files. Years of investigation compiled and cataloged with obsessive precision. Adrian started opening files at random, scanning content, piecing together the scope of what James Harper had discovered. This is incredible, he muttered. This isn't just Castellano. This is his whole network. Shell companies, offshore accounts, client lists. Your father mapped the entire operation. Is it enough to take them down? It's enough to bury them. Adrian looked up, his eyes bright with something Lily couldn't quite name. This is a federal case, multiple federal cases. The SEC, FBI, IRS, pick an agency, there's something here for them. So we go to the authorities. Not yet. First we make copies, multiple copies, stored in different locations. That way if something happens to us, the information still gets out. Adrian started typing again. Your father died protecting this. We're not going to waste it. Lily pulled out a chair and sat down, suddenly exhausted. The weight of everything was crushing. Her parents had died for this, had been murdered because her father had been too good at his job, too committed to doing the right thing, and now that burden was hers. I don't know if I can do this, she said quietly. Adrian stopped typing. Yes, you can. How do you know? Because you're already doing it. He turned to face her fully. 3 days ago, you were about to marry a man you didn't love to pay off debts you didn't owe. Now you're sitting in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, accessing encrypted files your dead father left you, preparing to take down a criminal empire. You've already done the hard part, Lily. Everything else is just cleanup. The hard part was running away. The hard part was choosing to run towards something instead of just away from everything. Adrian's voice was soft but firm. There's a difference. Before Lily could respond, Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression went dark. What? Lily asked. He turned the phone so she could see. A news alert. Woman found dead in apparent home invasion. Margaret Chen, 52, discovered in her residence Thursday evening. Police investigating. Lily's vision blurred. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. No, she whispered. Adrian was already on his feet, moving toward the window, checking the perimeter. This wasn't random. She's dead. My aunt is dead. Lily, listen to me. This was Victor, or someone working for him. They went to Margaret's house looking for something, probably the files we took. When they didn't find them, they killed her. Lily stood, her legs shaky. They killed her because of me, because I took those files. They killed her because she was a liability, because she knew too much and couldn't be trusted to keep quiet. Adrian came back to the table, his voice urgent. This changes everything. They're not playing games anymore. They're cleaning house. Lily's phone rang. Emma. With shaking hands, Lily answered. Lily? Emma's voice was ragged, broken. Lily, please tell me you're somewhere safe. Emma, I'm so sorry. Someone killed my mother. Emma was crying, the words barely coherent. Someone broke into the house and they killed her, and the police are asking questions about you, about where you were, about the files. What files? How do they know about files? I don't know. They just kept asking if you'd taken anything from the house, if you'd been in contact, if I knew where you were. Emma's breath hitched. Lily, what the hell is going on? I can't explain right now, but Emma, listen to me. You need to go somewhere safe, somewhere public. Don't go home. Don't trust anyone connected to Victor. Victor? What does Victor have to do with this? Everything. He has everything to do with this. He and your mom were working together, and now that she's dead, you might be next. You're not making sense. I know it sounds crazy, but please just trust me. Get somewhere safe and stay there. I'll call you when I can. She hung up before Emma could respond. Adrian was watching her, his expression unreadable. They're going to blame me, Lily said, for Margaret's death. They're going to say I killed her. Probably. It's a good cover. Runaway bride, unstable, recently stole from her aunt's house. They'll spin it as a family dispute that went wrong. So now I'm not just running from Victor, I'm running from the police. Welcome to the deep end. Adrian started packing up the laptop. We need to move again. If they're asking Emma about you, they'll be checking her phone records, tracking who she calls. This location might be compromised. Where do we go? I'm working on it. He grabbed the box of files, his movements quick and efficient. Get your stuff. We leave in 5. Lily stood frozen, her mind spinning. Aunt Margaret was dead. Emma was in danger. The police thought she was a murderer. Victor and Castellano were hunting her. And somewhere in the encrypted files on Adrian's laptop was evidence that could either save her or get her killed. She thought about her parents, about the choice they'd made to fight instead of looking away, about the price they'd paid. She thought about the girl she'd been 3 days ago, quiet, grateful, small. That girl was gone. In her place was someone Lily barely recognized, someone who'd walked away from her own wedding, someone who'd confronted her aunt, someone who'd stolen evidence and gone on the run with a man she barely knew, someone who was learning how to fight back. Lily, Adrian said quietly, we need to move. She grabbed the duffel bag and followed him to the car. Behind them, the cabin disappeared into darkness. Ahead, somewhere in the night, answers waited, and Lily was done running from them. They drove through the night with no destination, just movement. Adrian kept checking the mirrors, taking random exits, doubling back on highways like he was trying to shake a tail that might not even be there. Lily watched the darkness blur past and tried not to think about Margaret's body being photographed by crime scene investigators. Tried not to imagine Emma identifying her mother in some sterile morgue. Tried not to feel responsible. It's not your fault, Adrian said, breaking the silence. You don't know what I'm thinking. Yeah, I do. You're thinking if you hadn't taken those files, Margaret would still be alive. You're thinking this is all because you finally stood up for yourself. He glanced at her. And you're wrong. Am I? She'd be alive if I just married Victor like I was supposed to. She'd be complicit in your murder. There's a difference. Adrian's voice was hard. Margaret made her choices long before you made yours. She chose to help Victor. She chose money over your safety. What happened to her is a consequence of those choices, not yours. That doesn't make her less dead. No, but it makes her death her own responsibility, not yours. Lily wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself off the hook, but guilt wasn't rational, and the weight of it sat heavy in her chest no matter what logic said. Around 3 a.m, Adrian pulled into a truck stop off I-95. The parking lot was half full of semis, their engines rumbling, drivers sleeping in their cabs or shuffling into the bright fluorescent diner for coffee and pie. Wait here, Adrian said, killing the engine. I need to make a call. He disappeared into the darkness beyond the parking lot lights. Lily watched him through the windshield, a shadow among shadows, phone pressed to his ear. Whatever conversation he was having, it was intense. Even from this distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders. Her own phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. The police want to talk to you. They say it's urgent. Lily, please. I know you didn't hurt my mom, but you need to come in and explain what's happening. Lily's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to respond. Wanted to tell Emma everything, but Adrian's warning echoed in her head. Phone records, tracking, the wrong people listening. She put the phone away without answering. Adrian came back 10 minutes later, his expression grim but determined. We have a meeting, he said. With who? Someone who can help, but it's risky, and you need to be ready for things to get worse before they get better. How much worse can they get? I'm wanted for murder. You're a person of interest. There's a difference. They don't have evidence because there isn't any. But Victor's narrative is gaining traction, and we need to get ahead of it. Adrian started the car. The meeting's in 6 hours. Until then, we drive. Where are we going? Nowhere. Everywhere. Just moving. So they drove. Through Maryland, into Delaware, cutting across back roads that probably hadn't seen maintenance in a decade. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that felt obscene given the circumstances. Beautiful mornings shouldn't happen on days when everything was falling apart. They stopped once for gas and terrible coffee. Lily used the restroom and caught sight of herself in the mirror, hollow-eyed, pale, her hair a mess. She looked like exactly what she was. Someone running for her life. She splashed water on her face and tried to pull herself together. In the car, Adrian handed her a breakfast sandwich from the gas station. Eat. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You're going to need your strength. Lily unwrapped the sandwich and forced herself to take a bite. It tasted like cardboard and regret. But Adrian was right. She couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. Who are we meeting? She asked. Jessica Chen, former federal prosecutor. She worked your father's case 7 years ago. Adrian merged back onto the highway. After it fell apart, she left the prosecutor's office. Now she does private investigation work, mostly exposing corruption. If anyone can help us, it's her. And you trust her? I trust her to do the right thing when the evidence is strong enough. Your father's files, they're strong enough. The meeting was in a public park in Baltimore. Broad daylight, plenty of witnesses. Adrian parked 3 blocks away and they walked, blending into the morning crowd of joggers and dog walkers and people living normal lives. Jessica Chen was waiting on a bench near the fountain, reading a newspaper like she had all the time in the world. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, dressed in jeans and a blazer that somehow managed to look both casual and professional. When she saw Adrian, she folded the paper and stood. "Moretti," she said. Not friendly, not hostile, just acknowledgement. "Chen." Adrian gestured to Lily. "This is Lily Harper." "I know." Jessica's gaze swept over her, assessing. "You look like your father." Lily's throat tightened. "You knew him?" "We worked together for 3 months building the Castellano case. James was brilliant, thorough, and he died because he couldn't let the truth stay buried." Jessica sat back down and gestured for them to join her. "I tried to keep the case alive after he was gone, but without his testimony and the evidence he'd compiled, we had nothing. The investigation was shut down. Marcus Castellano walked free, and I've spent 7 years watching him expand his operation while everyone pretends he's a legitimate businessman." "We have the evidence," Adrian said quietly. "All of it. James encrypted it, hid it in cloud servers, left access protocols for Lily." Jessica's expression shifted. Hope, maybe, or hunger. "Show me." Adrian pulled out a tablet and opened several files, just enough to prove what they had without exposing everything. Jessica read in silence, her face betraying nothing. But Lily saw her hands tighten on the tablet, saw the way her jaw set. "This is solid," Jessica said finally. "This is everything we needed 7 years ago and more. Account numbers, transaction records, client communications. With proper verification, we can reopen the investigation." "How long?" Adrian asked. "Weeks, maybe months. I'll need to bring in forensic accountants, get federal warrants, coordinate with multiple agencies." "We don't have months," Lily interrupted. "Victor Hale and Marcus Castellano just murdered my aunt to cover their tracks. They're hunting me, and the police think I'm the killer." Jessica looked at her, really looked at her, and Lily saw something shift in the woman's expression. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. "Then we do this fast and we do it loud," Jessica said. "Public release. Every major news outlet simultaneously. If the evidence is out there, in the open, they can't bury it, can't make it disappear." "They can make us disappear," Adrian said. "Which is why you're going to stay in protective custody until this goes public. I have contacts at the FBI, people I trust. They can keep you safe while we prepare the release." Lily shook her head. "I'm not hiding while other people fight my battles." "Lily," Adrian started. "No, my father didn't hide. He stood up and exposed the truth even when it was dangerous, even when it got him killed." Lily looked at Jessica. "I want to testify, publicly. I want to stand in front of cameras and tell everyone what Victor Hale tried to do, what Marcus Castellano is, what they did to my parents." "That's not safe," Jessica said flatly. "I don't care about safe. I care about making sure they can't spin this into another story where they're the victims and I'm the villain." Lily's voice was shaking but steady. "They killed my parents. They tried to use me. They murdered my aunt. I'm done letting them control the narrative." Jessica studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled, small and fierce. "You really are James Harper's daughter. Is that a yes?" "It's a let me make some calls." Jessica stood. "Stay out of sight for the next 48 hours. I'll coordinate with the FBI, set up a press conference, and make sure we have enough security to keep you alive through it. But Lily, once you do this, there's no taking it back. Your life is going to change, forever. It already has, Jessica nodded. I'll be in touch. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd like she'd never been there. Adrian turned to Lily. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's either very brave or very stupid. Can it be both? Despite everything, Adrian's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Come on, we need to find somewhere to lay low until Chen calls. They found a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions. Adrian paid for 2 rooms, but they stayed in one, taking turns sleeping while the other kept watch. Lily tried to rest, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. In 48 hours, she'd be standing in front of cameras, exposing one of the most powerful men on the East Coast. If this worked, justice. If it didn't, a target on her back forever. She must have dozed off eventually because she woke to Adrian shaking her shoulder, his phone in his hand. Chen's moving up the timeline, he said. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., federal courthouse in Manhattan. Lily sat up, disoriented. Why the rush? Victor filed a missing persons report this morning. Claims you're mentally unstable, potentially dangerous to yourself and others. He's building a case to have you committed or arrested. Chen wants to get ahead of it. So we go public tomorrow. Yeah. Adrian's expression was unreadable. You ready? I have to be. The next 24 hours felt like living underwater. Everything moved in slow motion, muffled and strange. Jessica's FBI contacts arrived, 2 agents, professional and stone-faced, who swept the motel room for bugs and set up secure communication. They went over Lily's testimony a dozen times, making sure every detail was accurate, every claim backed by documentation. Adrian uploaded the encrypted files to secure servers, making copies, ensuring that even if something happened to them, the evidence would survive. Emma called twice. Lily didn't answer. She texted instead, "Tomorrow, watch the news. You'll understand everything." That night, Lily couldn't sleep at all. She sat by the window and watched the parking lot, the neon motel sign buzzing and flickering, casting red and blue shadows across the pavement. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she'd step out of the shadows and into the light. Tomorrow, she'd either win or lose everything. Adrian sat down beside her, 2 cups of terrible motel coffee in his hands. He gave her one. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. We can still run, disappear, start over somewhere they'll never find us. Is that what you did? After Sarah died? The question hung in the air between them. Adrian took a long drink of coffee. Sarah died in an accident. There was no one to hold accountable, no justice to seek. So yeah, I ran, buried myself in work, in this war with Castellano, in anything that would keep me from feeling it. He looked at Lily. But your situation is different. You have a chance to make this right, to honor what your father died for. And if it gets me killed, then you'll have died for something that matters. That's more than most people get. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it was oddly comforting. They sat in silence, drinking bad coffee, watching the night fade toward dawn. When the sun finally rose, Lily showered, dressed in clothes Jessica had provided. Professional, credible, the kind of outfit that said survivor instead of runaway bride. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Stronger, somehow. Harder. Ready. The drive to Manhattan took 2 hours. The FBI agents flanked them the entire way, their presence both reassuring and terrifying. This was real. This was happening. The federal courthouse was already swarming with reporters when they arrived. Jessica had leaked just enough information to guarantee coverage. Major development in 7-year-old fraud case. Daughter of murdered investigator to make statement without revealing details. The press smelled blood in the water. Inside, Jessica met them in a secure conference room. She had a whole team now, lawyers, agents, technical support. Everything was ready. The press conference would start in 30 minutes. After Lily's statement, the FBI would simultaneously release the encrypted files to every major news outlet. By noon, Marcus Castellanos' empire would be burning. How are you holding up? Jessica asked. Terrified, Lily admitted. Good. Channel that into your statement. Let them see you're human, that this cost you something. That makes it real. Jessica handed her a folder. These are the key points we need you to hit. Don't deviate. Don't answer questions about Margaret's death. Just stick to the facts about your father's investigation and Victor's attempt to defraud you. Lily scanned the notes. It all felt surreal, like she was reading someone else's story. Adrian touched her shoulder. You've got this. What if I freeze? What if I can't? Then you'll remember why you're here. You'll remember your parents, and you'll speak for them. At 9:55 a.m., they walked toward the press room. Lily could hear the crowd on the other side of the door, the murmur of voices, the click of cameras, the rustle of anticipation. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Jessica paused at the door. Last chance to back out? Lily thought about the girl she'd been 4 days ago. The girl who would have backed out, who would have apologized for causing trouble and quietly disappeared. That girl was gone. I'm ready, Lily said. Jessica opened the door. The room exploded with light and sound. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, the overwhelming crush of attention all focused on her. Lily's instinct was to run, to hide, to become invisible. Instead, she walked to the podium. The room gradually quieted. Lily gripped the edges of the podium to keep her hands from shaking and looked out at the sea of faces. Somewhere in that crowd was the truth. Somewhere in that crowd was justice. My name is Lily Harper, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. 4 days ago, I was supposed to get married. Instead, I ran. Not because I had cold feet, but because I overheard my fiancé, Victor Hale, admit that our entire relationship was a fraud designed to steal my inheritance and access evidence my father died protecting. The room was dead silent now. Every camera, every eye focused on her. 7 years ago, my father, James Harper, was a forensic accountant investigating Marcus Castellano for securities fraud and money laundering. My father found evidence of crimes totaling over $200 million. He documented shell companies, offshore accounts, illegal transactions spanning multiple countries. 3 months into his investigation, my parents were killed in what police ruled an accident. Lily's voice cracked. She paused, took a breath, continued. The case died with them. Marcus Castellano walked free. She could see reporters scribbling notes, camera operators adjusting their angles. This was it, the moment everything changed. But my father knew what he was dealing with. Before he died, he encrypted all his evidence and left it for me. He trusted that someday, when I was old enough to understand, when I was strong enough to carry it, I would finish what he started. Lily looked directly at the cameras. Today I'm honoring that trust. The FBI is releasing every file, every transaction record, every piece of evidence my father compiled. Marcus Castellano, Victor Hale, and everyone involved in this conspiracy will finally face justice. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction, overlapping and chaotic. Did Victor Hale know about your father? How long have you had this evidence? Are you accusing Marcus Castellano of murder? Jessica stepped forward and raised a hand. Ms. Harper will not be taking questions at this time. However, the evidence speaks for itself. Copies are being distributed now. The FBI will hold a separate briefing this afternoon with further details. As Jessica led Lily away from the podium, Lily caught sight of a television mounted on the wall. It was already showing breaking news coverage. Her face, the courthouse, the headline, Daughter of Murdered Investigator Exposes Financial Empire. It was done. The truth was out. In a secure room backstage, Adrian was waiting. He pulled her into a hug without a word, and Lily let herself collapse against him, shaking with adrenaline and relief and terror all mixed together. You did it, he said quietly. It's over. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Within an hour, federal agents raided Marcus Castellano's offices. Within 2 hours, Victor Hale was arrested at the airport trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands. Within 3 hours, a dozen shell companies had their accounts frozen and executives taken into custody. The news cycle exploded. Every outlet was covering the story: the murdered investigator, the daughter's revenge, the criminal empire exposed. Lily's face was everywhere. Her testimony played on loop. Reporters dug into every detail, every connection, every piece of evidence. And in a police station in New Jersey, detectives quietly dropped their investigation into Margaret Chen's death after security footage placed Victor Hale's car near her house the night she died, after a forensic team matched fibers from Victor's vehicle to evidence at the scene, after phone records showed he'd called one of Castellano's known associates minutes before Margaret was killed. Jessica called with updates throughout the day. Castellano's in custody. His lawyers are scrambling, but they've got nothing. The SEC is filing charges. FBI's got a dozen cooperating witnesses already. People are flipping left and right. What about Victor? Lily asked. Facing multiple counts, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder regarding your parents, and now they're building a case around Margaret's death. Jessica's voice was satisfied. He's looking at life without parole. They're offering him a deal if he testifies against Castellano, but even with cooperation, he's never seen the outside of a prison again. Good. There's something else, Jessica continued. The trust fund Victor mentioned? It exists. 2.3 million, actually. Your parents set it up when you were born. Margaret convinced you it didn't exist, but it's been growing interest for 7 years. It's yours, Lily. All of it. Lily sat down heavily. Money. Real money. The kind of money that meant security, freedom, choices. I don't want it, she heard herself say. What? The money. I don't want it, not all of it anyway. Lily's voice was stronger now, certain. Use it to set up a foundation. In my parents' names, something that helps victims of financial fraud. People like me who get manipulated by people like Victor. Jessica was quiet for a moment. That's a good idea, a really good idea. Keep enough for me to finish college. Maybe get my own place. The rest? Put it to work. Make it mean something. I'll drop the papers. That evening, Emma finally got through. Lily answered this time, stepping out onto the balcony of the safe house the FBI had moved them to. The city spread out below, lights twinkling in the gathering darkness. I watched the press conference, Emma said. Her voice was hollow, exhausted. I can't believe my mom was part of this. I can't believe she knew what happened to your parents and still, I know. Did she suffer when they killed her? I don't know, Lily said honestly. I hope not. Me too. Emma was quiet for a moment. The police called. They said Victor did it, that they have evidence, that he killed her because she was a witness, because she knew too much. Yeah. I trusted him too, you know. When Mom first introduced you two, I thought he seemed nice, normal. I encouraged you to give him a chance. Emma's voice broke. I'm so sorry, Lily, for all of it, for not believing you, for pushing you toward him. If I'd known, you didn't know. Margaret made sure of that. She manipulated both of us. Still, I should have listened when you said something was wrong. I should have trusted you. You're trusting me now. That's what matters. They talked for a while longer, navigating the complicated terrain of shared grief and betrayal. Emma was staying with friends, couldn't bear to go back to the house where her mother had died. She was seeing a therapist, trying to process everything. It would take time, lots of time. When Lily hung up, Adrian was standing in the doorway. How's she doing? He asked. As well as can be expected, which isn't great. Lily turned back to the view. How long do you think we have to stay here? FBI says at least until the grand jury convenes. They want you available for testimony, and they're worried Castellano's people might try something desperate. Adrian came to stand beside her. Could be weeks. And then what? Then you testify. Castellano goes to trial. The whole process plays out. He glanced at her. Could take a year, maybe more, before everything's really finished. A year. Lily tried to imagine it. A year of depositions and court appearances and reliving the worst moments of her life in front of strangers. What do I do in the meantime? Whatever you want. That's the whole point, isn't it? You're free now. Actually free. Free. The word still felt strange. The next few weeks settled into a routine. Lily met with lawyers, gave depositions, walked FBI agents through every detail of her father's files. She started therapy, court-ordered at first, but then she kept going because it actually helped. She talked about her parents, about Margaret, about the guilt and anger and grief all tangled together. She enrolled in online classes, started reading again, took walks through the safe neighborhood where the FBI had stashed her, always with an agent trailing at a discreet distance. And slowly, carefully, she started to feel like a person again. Not just a victim. Not just a witness. Just Lily. Adrian stayed close. Not hovering, not controlling, just present. He had his own life, his own business to attend to, but he checked in regularly. They had dinner together most nights, sometimes talking for hours, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. One night, about 6 weeks after the press conference, Lily finally asked the question that had been nagging at her. "Why did you help me?" "Really?" Adrian looked up from his plate. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you picked up a stranger in the rain, gave her shelter, risked your life fighting her battles. Why? You barely knew me." He was quiet for a long moment, considering. "You remember what I said about my war with Castellano? How I exposed one of his companies 3 years ago?" "Yeah. What I didn't tell you was why I did it." Adrian set down his fork. "Castellano approached me with a business opportunity. Wanted me to invest in one of his ventures. I did my research, realized it was dirty money, turned him down. He didn't take that well. Started making threats. Implied that accidents happen to people who don't cooperate. What did you do?" "I told him to try it. Then I made sure he knew exactly what would happen if he did. Every file I had on his operations would go public. Every crime I documented. It was mutually assured destruction." Adrian's expression was hard. "But it worked." He backed off. "And I realized I had leverage, real leverage, so I started using it, making him nervous, keeping him in check. And then I showed up. And then you showed up, looking exactly like the kind of person Castellano destroys. Young, scared, vulnerable. Except you weren't as vulnerable as you looked." Adrian met her eyes. "You ran. You fought back. You chose survival over compliance. That takes strength, Lily. Real strength. And I wanted to see what would happen if someone like you had actual support, instead of just predators circling. So I was an experiment? No, you were a chance to do something right, to help someone who deserved help." He paused. "And maybe to make up for all the times I didn't help. All the times I looked the other way because it wasn't my problem." "Sarah," Lily said quietly. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Sarah was sick. Cancer. We found out 6 months after we started dating. She fought for 2 years, and I watched her get weaker every day, and there was nothing I could do. No way to fix it, no enemy to fight, just helplessness." He looked away. "When she died, I was angry. At the universe, at fate, at whatever decides these things. And I turned that anger on Castellano because at least that was something I could control, something I could fight." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's been 18 months. I'm dealing with it." Adrian looked back at her. "But helping you? That wasn't about Sarah. That was about you. About seeing someone who deserved better and actually being able to do something about it." Lily didn't know what to say to that, so she just reached across the table and took his hand. They sat like that for a while, connected in comfortable silence. The grand jury indicted Marcus Castellano on 43 counts of fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and racketeering. Victor Hale was indicted on 27 counts, including 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. The trials were scheduled 6 months out, giving prosecutors time to build their cases. Jessica kept Lily informed of every development. "They're offering Castellano a plea deal. 20 years if he cooperates. His lawyers are trying to negotiate down to 15. "Will he take it?" Lily asked. "Probably. He's 62. 20 years is effectively a life sentence. He'll want to avoid the publicity of a trial." Jessica sounded satisfied. "Either way, he's done. His empire's dismantled, his accounts frozen, his reputation destroyed. You won, Lily." But winning didn't feel the way Lily had imagined. There was satisfaction, yes, relief, but also exhaustion. And the knowledge that nothing she did would bring her parents back, would bring Margaret back, complicated and flawed as she'd been. Justice wasn't the same as healing. It was just the first step. 3 months after the press conference, the FBI cleared Lily to leave protective custody. "Castellano's cooperating," the lead agent told her. "He's given up his whole network. Anyone who might have posed a threat is either in custody or too busy saving themselves to worry about you. You're safe." Safe. Another strange word. Lily moved into a small apartment in Brooklyn, furnished it slowly with secondhand finds and things that made her smile. She kept taking classes, started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping other victims of financial fraud navigate the system. Put her parents' foundation into motion with Jessica's help. She had lunch with Emma once a week. It was awkward at first, stilted and painful, both of them navigating the minefield of Margaret's betrayal. But gradually, it got easier. They were family in the end. Imperfect, damaged, but family. Adrian stayed in her life, though the nature of their relationship shifted. Less protector and protected. More equals. Friends who'd been through fire together and come out changed. One evening, 6 months after everything had started, Lily met him for dinner at a small Italian place in Manhattan. They'd both dressed up a bit. Not fancy, just presentable. It felt almost normal. "So," Adrian said after they'd ordered, "Jessica told me Castellano took the plea deal. 20 years, federal prison, no parole." "Yeah, she called this morning." Lily took a sip of wine. "It's really over." "How does that feel?" "Anticlimactic, honestly. I thought there'd be this big moment of closure. Instead, it's just done. He goes to prison. Life goes on." "That's kind of how justice works. Not as dramatic as the movies make it seem." "No, but it's enough." Lily set down her glass. "What about you? What happens now that your war with Castellano is over?" "I don't know. Maybe I'll take that vacation I keep threatening to take." Adrian smiled. "Greece is nice this time of year, or so I've heard." "I've heard that too." They looked at each other across the table, and something unspoken passed between them. An invitation. A possibility. "You should come," Adrian said. "If you want. No pressure. Just two people who've earned a break from reality for a while." Lily thought about it. About the girl she'd been, so scared of everything, so desperate to please. That girl would have said no, would have convinced herself she didn't deserve nice things, didn't deserve happiness. But Lily wasn't that girl anymore. "Yeah," she said. "I'd like that." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Adrian's smile widened, genuine and warm. "Okay then. Greece it is." They talked through dinner about logistics, about places Adrian had read about what Lily wanted to see. It felt good. Normal. Like planning a future instead of just surviving the present. When Adrian walked her home later that night, stopping outside her building, Lily turned to face him. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for picking me up that night, for believing me, for fighting with me. You did the hard parts yourself. Maybe, but I wouldn't have gotten there alone." Lily hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged him. Adrian hugged back, solid and warm and safe. When they pulled apart, he was smiling again, that almost smile she'd learned to recognize. "See you tomorrow?" he asked. "See you tomorrow." Lily watched him walk away, then headed inside. Her apartment was small, but it was hers. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, every choice hers to make. She made tea and sat by the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Victor was in prison. Castellano was in prison. The people who'd killed her parents were facing consequences. And Lily was here, alive, free, starting over. It wasn't perfect. She still had nightmares sometimes. Still felt the weight of everything she'd lost. Still wondered what her life would have looked like if her parents had lived. If Margaret had made different choices. If she'd never met Victor Hale. But she was learning to carry that weight. Learning to live with the scars instead of being defined by them. 3 weeks later, Lily stood in the Athens airport, backpack slung over her shoulder, waiting for Adrian to finish arguing with the rental car attendant in extremely poor Greek. The sun was bright, the air warm and salty, and everything felt new. "You ready?" Adrian asked, finally emerging victorious with car keys. "Yeah," Lily said. "I'm ready." They drove along the coast, windows down, music playing, the Mediterranean stretching out endless and blue beside them. Lily stuck her hand out the window, feeling the wind rush past, and for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt light. They spent 3 weeks in Greece, swimming in hidden coves, eating food that tasted like sunshine, exploring ancient ruins and modern markets. They talked about everything and nothing, about Sarah and James and Catherine and Margaret and all the ghosts they carried, about the future, about what came next. One evening, sitting on a beach watching the sunset, Adrian asked, "What are you going to do when we get back?" "Finish school, I think. Maybe study law like my dad. Or maybe something completely different." Lily drew patterns in the sand with her finger. "I don't know yet, and that's okay. For the first time, I don't have to know." "That's good. Uncertainty suits you." "Is that a compliment?" "Yeah, it means you're not scared of it anymore." He was right. She wasn't scared. Not of the future, not of making mistakes, not of being alone. She'd survived the worst thing she could imagine. Everything else was just details. "What about you?" Lily asked. "What's next for Adrian Moretti?" "I'm thinking about starting a foundation too, using some of the dirt I have on other companies like Castellanos to help people who've been screwed over by corporate fraud." He glanced at her. "Might need a partner, someone who knows what it's like to be on the receiving end." "Is that a job offer?" "It's an invitation to build something that matters, together." Lily considered it, a partnership with Adrian using the skills and knowledge they'd both gained to help others. It felt right, meaningful. "I'm in," she said. They shook on it, formal and ridiculous given they were barefoot on a beach in Greece, and then they both started laughing. The sun set, painting the sky in impossible colors. Lily watched it disappear below the horizon and felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe, or acceptance. She'd lost so much. Her parents, her innocence. 7 years of her life spent being someone she wasn't. But she'd gained something too. Strength, purpose, a voice. And she was just getting started. Back in New York 2 months later, Lily stood in front of a podium again. But this time it was different. This time she was announcing the Harper Foundation, named for her parents, funded by their legacy, dedicated to helping victims of financial fraud find justice. Emma was in the audience. So was Jessica. So were a dozen other people whose lives had been touched by the case, by the evidence her father had died protecting. Adrian stood off to the side, watching with that quiet pride he never quite put into words. "My parents believed in the truth," Lily said, her voice steady and strong. "They believe that even when the system seems rigged, even when powerful people seem untouchable, the truth matters. And I'm here to carry on that belief, to help others who've been silenced find their voice, to make sure that what happened to my family never happens again." The room erupted in applause. Afterward, as people mingled and reporters asked questions, Emma pulled Lily aside. "Mom would have hated this," Emma said, but she was smiling through tears. "All this attention, all this honesty. She spent so much energy hiding the truth. I know. But I think, deep down, she would have been proud of you too. Proud of who you became." Emma hugged her. "I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Em." That night, Lily went home to her apartment. She made tea, curled up on her couch, and opened a photo album she'd put together. Pictures of her parents, of her childhood, of the life before everything fell apart. She'd spent so long running from these memories, afraid they'd break her. But now she could look at them and smile. Remember without drowning. Honor the past without being trapped by it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "Dinner tomorrow? There's a new case I want to run by you. Woman in Chicago, embezzlement scheme, needs help." Lily smiled and typed back. "Absolutely. Let's take them down." She set down her phone and looked around her apartment, at the life she'd built, the future she'd claimed. 4 months ago, she'd been standing in a wedding dress, about to sign her life away to a man who wanted to destroy her. Now she was here, alive, fighting, free. And somewhere she hoped her parents were watching, hoped they knew that their sacrifice hadn't been in vain, that their daughter had found her strength, had finished what they started, had learned, finally, to stand up and say no, to choose herself, to fight back. Lily Harper closed the photo album, finished her tea, and turned off the lights. Tomorrow, there would be more battles, more people to help, more justice to seek. But tonight, she rested, and she was enough.